Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, okay,
Yes,
okay.
sir.
Let us wait for 5 more minutes. Okay, after that we are going to start. I welcome you all to lecture number 14. And here I'm going to give introduction to the concept of fuzzy sets and different applications of fuzzy logic. Now, before I start, I have one request. Whenever I'm delivering this particular lecture, so please do not change the PPT file. Please do not change it. Help me. Okay. The next is I hope all of you have submitted assignment 1, assignment 2, and you have participated in test 1. Okay. Now, till now in this course, I discussed the principle of optimization, both traditional and non-traditional optimization tools. Now, today I'm going to start with another very powerful member of this soft computing family, that is the concept of fuzzy sets and fuzzy logic. Now, before I start with the concept of fuzzy sets, now there is another set that is called the classical set or the crisp set. And I am sure all of you have studied the principle of classical set or the crisp set. Now, its name indicates that a crisp set is a set having well-defined boundary. That means there is a fixed boundary for this classical set or the crisp set. Now, although you have studied the principle of the classical set or the crisp set, I'll be concentrating some time on discussing, on defining the concept of crisp set or the classical set, and I'll also concentrate on the properties of the classical set or the crisp set before I start with the concept of fuzzy set. The moment I say that there is a concept of fuzzy set, that means there is something else that is called the classical set or the crisp set. Now, let me tell you, by a fuzzy set, we mean a set with imprecise or vague boundary. That means there is no fixed boundary for this particular the fuzzy set. Okay, I'll be taking some example and I'll be discussing in details. I'll try to find out the difference between the classical set and this particular the fuzzy set. I'll also be discussing how to represent a particular the fuzzy set. So all such things I'm going to discuss one after another. Now let me start with the concept of the classical set or the crisp set, and that is denoted by say capital A. And as I told, all of you have taken the course on classical set or the crisp set. But let me repeat, this will be some sort of recapitulation for you. Now, if I want to introduce the concept of classical set or the crisp set, the first thing I'll have to define a concept that is called the universal set or universe of discourse, and that is denoted by capital X. So the universal set or the universe of discourse, it is denoted by capital X, and by definition, a universal set is a set consisting of all possible elements. Okay, so universal set is a set consisting of all possible elements. Let me take one example. Now, throughout our country, we have got a large number of technical universities. Okay. Now, if I just want to make a big set of all technical universities in India or all technical universities in the universe, that will constitute one universal set or universe of discourse. Okay, let me consider the all technical universities in the whole universe. Okay, that will constitute a very big set that is denoted by capital X, that is your universal set or universe of discourse. All of you know. Now, based on this definition of universal set, I can now define the concept of classical set or a crisp set. So, by definition, classical set or a crisp set is a set with fixed and well-defined boundary. Okay, this I have already told that for a classical set or a crisp set, we have got one fixed and well-defined boundary. Let me take one example. Now we have got the universe of discourse denoted by capital X. That is a very big set. Okay. Now inside that big set, I have got a subset that is nothing but a set of technical universities having at least say 5 or 10 departments each. Okay. So we have got a large number of technical universities throughout the universe. Out of all the technical universities, I'm just going to make a subset of technical universities having at least say 10 departments each. Okay. So once again, I'll be getting one well-defined set. That particular set is nothing but the classical set or the crisp set. So I hope you have understood the meaning of classical set or crisp set. Please stop your audio and video, all of you, please. Now, this is the way actually we can define the classical set or the crisp set. Now, how to represent the classical set or crisp set? All of you know that a classical set, capital A, is nothing but a collection of all the elements like A1, A2, up to say AN. Okay. So the collection of all elements like small a1, a2 up to an is nothing but is your crisp set or classical set denoted by capital A. Now there are some other ways also to represent the crisp set. For example, say capital A, that is a crisp set, is nothing but X such that it has got a property Px. So this is another way of defining the classical set or crisp set. Or we use some characteristic function just to represent the crisp set or your classical set. For example, say characteristic function denoted by mu ax is equals to 1 if x belongs to A, and that is equals to 0 if x does not belong to A. So it is very simple. It is either yes or no. If I just show you one color and if I ask you, is it red? Your answer will be according to the classical set or the crisp set, either yes or no. If it is yes, the characteristic function is nothing but 1. And if it is 0, then the characteristic function is equal to 0. It is so simple. If the color is red, then its characteristic function is 1. If it is not red, then the characteristic function is equal to 0. It is so simple. So in classical set or a crisp set, there are only two solutions, either 1 or 0, yes or no, red or not red. I hope you all of you are clear, and this is some sort of recapitulation because all of you have studied in your class 11, 12 level or first year level this particular the classical set or the crisp set. This is how to represent the classical set or the crisp set. Now, there are some notations which we generally use to represent the set. Okay. So in set theory, you'll find there are a few notations. For example, say this particular notation represents the empty set or the null set. Then X belongs to capital A. So this is denoted by this particular your the symbol. Okay. The next is X does not belong to A. So this is the symbol. Then A subset of set B. If this symbol is used, set A is a subset of B. Okay. I think all of you are aware of this particular the symbol. Then A superset B. Okay. So A superset B. This is another symbol to represent the superset. Then A equals to B. So A is equals to B, and this particular symbol A is not equal to B. Okay. So these are the symbols, and there are a few other symbols which are generally used in your the set theory. All of you know. Then there is another symbol. So A proper subset of B. So this particular symbol. The next is A is a proper superset of B. So this is the symbol. A is a proper superset of B. Okay. Now I'm just going to define another symbol which is generally used to represent the cardinality of set A. The cardinality of set A is defined as the total number of elements present in that particular the set, and that is denoted by this particular symbol. So this is the symbol to represent the cardinality of set A. Let me take a very simple example. Supposing that I have got a set having two elements. So capital A is nothing but a collection of two elements, A1 and A2, small a1 and small a2. What is the cardinality of set A? By definition, cardinality of set A is defined as the total number of elements present in the set. That means the cardinality of A is nothing but 2 because there are A1 and A2. I think it is clear to all of you. Now, another symbol which is very frequently used, that is nothing but P of A. Now, P of A, that is called the power set of A. Let me repeat. P of A is nothing but the power set of A, and it is defined as the maximum number of subsets, including the null, that can be constructed from a set A. Let me repeat. Power set of A is the maximum number of subsets, including the null set, that can be constructed from a set A. Let me take the same example. Say the classical set capital A is a collection of the two elements, small a1 and small a2. Now, using these particular elements, let me see how many such subsets can be constructed. How many? For example, one subset could be, so only A1, there out of these two elements, I am taking only one element. So one subset could be only A1, another subset could be only A2, another subset could be A1, A2, okay. Another subset could be your null set, okay. So if there are two such elements in a set A, I can construct a total of 4 subsets. Okay, one is only A1, another is only A2, another is a collection of A1, A2, and another is nothing but the null set. So I can construct 4 subsets. Okay, so if I can construct 4 subsets, what is the cardinality of PA? The cardinality of PA is nothing but 4. Okay. And what is the cardinality of A? Cardinality of A is 2 because there are 2 elements. Okay. So now this 4 is equal to 2 raised to the power 2. Okay. That means this particular relationship, it holds good. That is, cardinality of power set of A is nothing but 2 raised to the power cardinality of set A. So this particular condition, this particular relation holds good in classical set. Okay, I think I'm clear to all of you. All of you know all such things. So these are nothing but the recapitulation. Now I'm discussing the classical set or the crisp set so that I can start discussing with the more advanced, more general concept that is nothing but the fuzzy set. Now fuzzy set I have not yet started. So I'm discussing the classical set or the crisp set now. Now there are some standard operations used in classical set, all of you know. Now let me concentrate on so this particular the figure. The universal set that is denoted by capital X is nothing but the bigger circle. The bigger circle represents actually the set of all technical universities in the world, that type of thing. So this is nothing but is your universal set or universe of discourse. Now inside that universal set, supposing that I have got two subsets, one is your A, another is your B, and both A and B are your crisp set having well-defined boundary. Okay, if that is the case, the difference between the two sets that is denoted by A minus B is nothing but X. X belongs to A and X does not belong to B. Let me read it out. I've got two sets defined A and B. Inside this universal set, I want to find out the difference. The difference between these two sets, that is A minus B, is nothing but X such that X belongs to capital A and X does not belong to capital B. Okay. Now, if you see, A is one set, B is another classical set. So A minus B will be represented by so this shaded portion or the black portion. I think I am clear to all of you. Let me repeat. So A is one classical set, B is another classical set. So A minus B is nothing but the shaded portion or the black portion. Okay, that is what we mean by the difference. And this is also known as relative complement of set B with respect to set A. Let me repeat. Now this difference A minus B is also known as relative complement of set B with respect to set A. Now there is another concept that is called absolute complement. This is relative complement. Now I am discussing the absolute complement. Absolute complement that is denoted by A bar, that is nothing but AC, that is your universal set capital X minus A. Okay, universal set minus A, that is nothing but the absolute complement A bar, that is nothing but is your X such that small x belongs to universal set and X does not belong to A. Similar to this, exactly similar to this. Okay, so let me repeat the absolute complement A bar, that is nothing but AC, is what? That is X minus A. Okay, that is your X such that X belongs to capital X and X does not belong to A. Now graphically I'm just or in the figure I'm just going to show you here. You can see X is nothing but the universal set, A is a classical set or a crisp set, and its complement is denoted by is your X minus A. That means your this shaded portion or the black portion is nothing but the absolute complement of A. It is very simple. In classical set, if you define that color is red and its complement is not red, that type of thing. So this is the way actually we represent the absolute complement of a crisp set. Now I'm just going for the concept of intersection of two classical sets or the crisp set. Now supposing that I have got two crisp sets A and B defined in the universe of discourse, that is your capital X. So capital X is nothing but the universal set, and inside the universal set I have got two sets, set A and set B. Now the intersection of A and B, that is A intersection B, is nothing but X, such that X belongs to A and X belongs to B. That means the common region between A and B you'll have to consider. Okay, so X belongs to A and X belongs to B. So this particular region is nothing but is your common region. So this is the common region. So this common region is nothing but intersection. So A intersection B is denoted by your this common region. I think I'm clear to all of you the concept of intersection of two fuzzy sets. Now, similarly, we have got a concept of union. All of you know the concept of union. Now, here, union, that is A union B. So, this is the universal set. This is your classical set A, classical set B, and A union B is nothing but, so this particular shaded region or the black region. And it is defined as A union B is equals to X, such that X belongs to A or X belongs to B. So here we have got one OR operator. Okay. So here we have got one OR operator for union, and intersection we had the AND operator. Okay. So A union B is nothing but X. X belongs to A or X belongs to B, and union represent actually your total shaded portion or the black portion. Okay. So this is the way actually we define your the union of two fuzzy sets, that is A union B. So all of you know these are all recapitulation sort of things. Now the properties of crisp set, all of you know. There are a few standard properties which are followed by the crisp set. For example, the first one, that is law of involution. Okay, all of you know. That is complement of complement is nothing but the actual set. For example, say I have got a crisp set A. First I find out A bar, that is the first complement. Bar of A bar, that is nothing but is your the original set. So that is your law of involution. Then comes your law of commutativity, that is A union B is nothing but B union A. A intersection B is nothing but B intersection A. Then the law of associativity, all of you know, A union B union C is nothing but A union B union C. A intersection B intersection C is nothing but A intersection B intersection C. Then distributivity, A intersection B union C is nothing but A intersection B union A intersection C. Then A union B intersection C is nothing but A union B intersection A union C. Then law of tautology, all of you know, that is A union A is nothing but A intersection A is nothing but A. laws of absorption, that is A union A intersection B is equals to A. Then comes your A intersection A union B is equals to A. Then laws of identity A union X, that is the universal set, is nothing but universal set X. A intersection X is nothing but A. A union null set is equals to A. A intersection null set is equals to null set. Then De Morgan's law, like complement of A intersection B is nothing but complement of A union complement of B. Then complement of A union B is nothing but complement of A intersection complement of B. Then comes law of contradiction, that is your A intersection A bar is nothing but null set. Law of excluded middle, that is your A union A bar, and that is nothing but X. So these are all properties of the crisp set. Okay. Now later on we'll discuss. So I'm just going to give you the hint. All the rules of the classical sets are followed by fuzzy set except the last two. This I'll be discussing at the end after some time. Okay. So except the last two, that is law of contradiction and law of excluded middle. These two laws are not followed by the fuzzy set. The rest of the rules, like the first 8 rules, are followed by fuzzy sets also. Now, with this introduction to the concept of the classical set or the crisp set, which is some sort of recapitulation for all of you, I'm just going to give introduction to the concept of fuzzy set. Now, as I told, that fuzzy sets are sets with imprecise or vague boundaries. Okay. And the concept of fuzzy set that was introduced, I should say reintroduced by Professor Jade of University of California, USA in the year 1965. Now, the reason why I am telling it is reintroduced, because a similar concept may not be exactly the same concept. A similar concept was proposed in the year 1937 by an American philosopher whose name is Max Black. Okay. The moment he gave the concept of fuzzy set, the traditional mathematicians, they did not like this particular concept. They told that there is nothing in the world called fuzzy set. Crisp set is the final, there cannot be any fuzzy set. And that American philosopher, so he stopped. Okay, then after a few years, it was reintroduced or similar, not exactly the same, similar idea was proposed by Professor Jade in the year 1965, and he became very famous. The whole world actually knows Professor Jade for the concept of fuzzy sets. Okay, and he is known as actually father of fuzzy logic. Okay. Now I'll come to that particular history later on. Okay, but let me repeat once again. Fuzzy set is nothing but a set with imprecise and vague boundary. Now I'm just going to define the concept of fuzzy set with the help of similar type of example which I have already taken. Now I told that the set of all technical universities in the universe that will constitute one universal set, that is capital X. Okay, then I defined the concept of classical set or the crisp set, which is nothing but a set of all technical universities in the world having at least say 10 departments each. So I'll be getting the classical set or the crisp set with well-defined boundary. Now, if I add another thing, can you please find out a set of technical universities in the world which has at least 10 good quality departments? Okay, the problem becomes much more difficult the moment we add that particular adjective, that is good. Let me repeat. Can you please find out a set of technical universities in the world which are having at least 10 good quality departments? Okay. The moment I add that particular adjective good, the problem becomes more difficult. Okay. And and the answer will vary from person to person, because the way we define the quality good, that may vary from person to person. Okay. For example, say person X will define good departments in one way, person Y will define good departments in another way, person Z is going to define good university in another way. Okay. So you may not get a very well-defined boundary for this particular the set, that is called the set of technical universities having at least uh, 10 good quality departments. Okay, so you'll not be getting a very well-defined boundary, and that particular set of technical universities having at least 10 good quality departments, that is known as your the fuzzy set. Because here the boundary is not fixed, there is no well-defined boundary. It will vary from person to person, and it has got the vague boundary. That is why that particular set is known as the fuzzy set. And how to represent? Generally, crisp set we represent by the solid line or the solid circle sort of thing, the way I showed you. And to represent the fuzzy set, we generally use dotted circle sort of thing. Okay, boundary will be drawn with the help of some dotted lines, not solid lines. This is the way actually we represent your the fuzzy set. Now, this fuzzy set is a powerful tool for dealing with imprecision and uncertainty. Okay, I'll be taking some example and you'll see that the concept of fuzzy set can handle your imprecision and uncertainty. Now, here I have put one thing. Fuzzy set is a more general concept of the classical set. So, classical set is a small thing and fuzzy set is a more general concept. Okay. Now, with this information, I just want to give you the history of this particular the fuzzy set, the way that particular fuzzy set came into the existence. As I told, that Prasad Jade in the year 1965, okay, he introduced the concept of your fuzzy set. Now, prior to 1965, people used to know that it is the probability theory, which all of you have studied, which works based on the classical set only, can handle all the uncertainties in the world. Okay, but in the year 1965, Professor Jade argued that there are many other uncertainties in the world which could not be tackled using the concept of probability theory, which works based on the classical set. Now, probability theory, all of you have studied, and the probability value varies from 0 to 1, and probability works based on the concept of classical set or the crisp set, and that is the concept is developed based on Aristotelian two-valued logic. Okay, so all such things you know. So I'm not going to spend much time on this. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take some example where you'll see that there are some uncertainties in the real world problem which could not be tackled using the concept of your classical set or the probability theory. Let me take one example. Now, supposing that one of your friends is going to market and you are going to request your friend, please bring 1 kg red apple for me from the market. Okay. Now, depending on the season, depending on the availability, your friend will bring say 1 kg apple for you, okay, from the market. Now, whenever you see that particular apple, the quality of the apple, okay, you wanted a red apple, okay, and your friend has brought some apples for you. The moment you see those particular apples, you might be either happy, you may not be happy also, because you wanted a red apple. Okay. Now, how to define that particular the red apple? Okay, that adjective red, how to define? Now remember, to define that particular red apple, okay, different people will follow different methods, different rules. For example, say Mr. X will define apples are to be red if it is follows this quality. Then Mr. Y will define red apple if it follows another set of rules. Mr. Z will define red apple if it follows another set of rules. Now, this set of rules may differ from person to person. Are you getting my point? So, there are some imprecision, there are some uncertainties associated with the real world problem. Okay. Now, let me come back to the same example. Your friend has brought 1 kg red apple for you. Now, as I told, the definition of red will differ from person to person. Now, this particular physical problem has got two uncertainties associated. What are those? The first one is availability of your apple. Okay, the first your uncertainty is related to the availability of apple, that is nothing but probability of getting apple. Now this uncertainty can be tackled using the concept of probability. But there is another uncertainty associated with the red color, that is the color of that particular apple. Okay. Now, the moment one person sees that particular so-called red apple, he may think it is perfectly red. For the same apple, another person, whenever he sees, he may say, no, it is almost red. Another person will say it is slightly red. Another person may say, no, it is not red at all. Okay. So the same color red will be defined in the different ways by the different people. So that particular uncertainty cannot be tackled using the concept of probability theory. And if you want to answer, or if you want to tackle that particular uncertainty, you need another concept, that is the concept of fuzzy set, okay, to define that particular your color red. So this particular uncertainty, second uncertainty, could not be tackled using the classical set or the CRISP set. And if you want to tackle the uncertainty related to red color, okay, you'll have to take the help of your the fuzzy sets. How to do it? It is very simple. Now for the red color, there will be one distribution of membership that I'll be discussing. And membership value is nothing but the degree of belongingness. If it is red, how much red it is. Okay, so that type of thing. So there will be a distribution of red color. If the color is found to be red, perfectly red, then we declare it is red with membership function value 1.0. If it is almost red, then we define it is red with membership function value 0.8. If it is slightly red, then also we define it is red with membership function value 0.4. If it is not red, then also we define red with membership function value 0.0. So unlike the classical set, in fuzzy set, whenever we define, we take the help of your membership function value or degree of belongingness. That is an extra thing which we use in fuzzy set, which is missing in the classical set. In classical set, it is either red or not red, 1 or 0. But in fuzzy set, we can say it is red with 1.0 membership, it is red with 0.8 membership, it is red with 0.6 membership, it is red with 0.1 membership, it is red with 0.0 membership. This is the difference between the classical set and your fuzzy set. In classical set or the crisp set, it is either 1 or 0. But in fuzzy set, we define that particular the red color using the information of its membership function value, that is nothing but degree of belongingness. Now remember, this membership value varies in a range of 0 to 1. Probability value also varies in a range of 0 to 1. But remember, the concept of probability and the concept of membership are not exactly the same. Now, probability, all of you know that probability is nothing but a frequency data. Okay. So, probability means frequency of likelihood that an element is in a class. Okay. That is the availability of apple. Okay. Depending on the season, the probability of getting apple will vary. Okay. In the range of 0 to 1. But membership, like to define the color of that particular apple, we use that adjective red, and it is associated with some membership or the similarity value, that is nothing but similarity of an element to a class. Okay, similarity of an element to a class, that is nothing but is your membership value. Okay, so let me repeat. Probability is a frequency of likelihood that an element is in a class. Membership is similarity of an element to a class. Okay, so the concept of probability, which is defined based on the classical set or the crisp set, is different from the concept of membership, which is actually the main thing in the definition of your fuzzy set. Now, how to represent a fuzzy set? We have seen how to represent one crisp set or classical set. Now, I am going to define a fuzzy set. Now, this fuzzy set X is nothing but X, comma, mu AX. Now, this mu AX is nothing but the membership value. Here, mu represents the membership value, and X, small x, belongs to the universe of discourse, that is capital X. So, the fuzzy set is denoted by AX, and AX is nothing but X comma mu AX, and this mu AX is nothing but the membership value. So to define a fuzzy set, we use the concept of this particular membership value. Okay. So this is the way actually we define that particular the fuzzy set. Now this fuzzy set could be of two types. It could be your discrete fuzzy set, or there could be continuous fuzzy set. How to define the discrete fuzzy set? It is very simple. Now you concentrate on this particular figure. So here I am just plotting the temperature of a place during the first 15 days in a month, and supposing that it is declared the temperature is hot. Okay, so on the first day, the temperature is hot with this much of membership function value. So this is the mu membership function value. It varies from 0 to 1. So on the first day, the temperature is hot with a small membership function value. On the second day, the temperature is hot with this much of membership value. On the third day, the temperature is hot with this much of membership function value. And on this your 8th day, the temperature is hot with 1.0 membership function value. Okay, so here we are going to represent the fuzzy set in discrete way. Okay, how to represent mathematically? So AX is nothing but summation I equals to 1 to n mu AXI by xi. Now this by xi is not a division symbol. Okay, so what we do is, so this summation is nothing but a collection. So corresponding to x1, its mu value you write at the top and you put this particular symbol, then you write down first day 1, comma, you put the membership function value corresponding to the second day, put this slash, here you write 2, comma, then you concentrate here on the third day, you write the membership function value plus you put 3, comma. So this is nothing but actually a collection of membership function values corresponding to the hot temperature day wise. Okay, so this is the way actually we use the concept of a discrete fuzzy set. So the temperature, the hot temperature during the first 15 days in a month can be represented with the help of this type of discrete fuzzy set. I think I'm clear to all of you. In some of the textbooks, they write in slightly different way. In place of this slash, they use one first bracket. First, they will be writing the membership function value, comma, xi is the first day, that is 1, bracket close, comma, once again first bracket, put the membership function value corresponding to the second day, okay, and comma, you put 2 represents the second day, first bracket close, comma, then you go for third, fourth, up to the nth one. This is another way of representing your discrete fuzzy set. I'll be taking some numerical example, and there I'll show you that particular the representation of discrete fuzzy set after a few classes. There is another concept that is called the continuous fuzzy set. So in place of this discrete fuzzy set, I'm going to take the help of one continuous curve. So one curve will be fitted here. For example, there could be a nonlinear curve here, another nonlinear curve here to represent this particular the fuzzy set. So then it will become a continuous fuzzy set. So a continuous fuzzy set AX is nothing but integration over x mu AX slash x. Once again, this slash does not indicate this is a division. Okay, and another thing, this integration symbol is not that mathematical concept of integration. So what it does is it represents the collection of all the data, like your mu x corresponding to 1, mu x corresponding to 1, mu x corresponding to 1, similar to the discrete, but the difference is we try to fit a continuous curve, mathematical curve to these particular points. We try to find out a best fit curve. So instead of this discrete nature of representation, we use that particular mathematical expression in continuous fuzzy set. Okay, I'll be taking some examples of your continuous fuzzy sets. Now, before I go further, so I'm just going to discuss one concept for continuous fuzzy set. That is the concept of convex fuzzy set versus non-convex fuzzy set. That is convex membership function distribution versus non-convex membership function distribution. Okay. Now, what do you mean by convex versus non-convex membership function distribution? Now, here you can see, so as x increases, that is the number of days increases, the mu value is increasing monotonically. It will reach the maximum value of 1. If x further increases, x is the value of mu is going to be reduced monotonically. So x is increasing monotonically, x is decreasing monotonically. So this type of membership function distribution is known as convex membership function distribution. On the other hand, you can see if x increases, the mu value is going to increase monotonically up to this. After that, if x further increases, mu value is going to decrease. Then for a range of x, mu value will remain constant. Once again it will increase, once again it will decrease. If this is the nature of the membership function distribution, that is called the non-convex membership function distribution. So I hope you got the idea of convex and non-convex membership function distribution. How to check it mathematically? So there is a check here. So using this particular the mathematical expression, you can check whether it is a convex membership function distribution or a non-convex membership function distribution. Let me tell you the method. So mu A, second bracket, hello, mu A, second bracket, lambda x1 plus 1 minus lambda x2. So if it is found to be greater than equal minimum of mu A x1 comma mu A x2. So if this particular condition gets fulfilled, then we declare that the membership function distribution is a convex membership function distribution. Okay, it is very simple. Where lambda varies from 0 to 1, take a fixed value of lambda, say 0.6. Okay, take some point x1 and x2. Okay, take lambda equals to your say 0.6. Calculate the left hand side. Calculate the right hand side. That means corresponding to x1, you'll have to find out the membership function value. Corresponding to x2, you'll have to find out the membership function value. You'll have to compare and select the minimum. Now, if this particular condition gets fulfilled, we say that the membership function distribution is a convex membership function distribution. Okay. Otherwise, this is non-convex membership function distribution. So I think you got the idea of convex and non-convex membership function distribution. Now I'm going to concentrate on different types of the membership function distribution which we generally use. For example, say very frequently we use the concept of triangular membership. Okay. Now according to the triangular membership, mu triangle. So this is the triangular membership. So this is the triangular membership. So here we have got the x, that is the number of days. The membership function value is mu, varies from 0 to 1. Okay. So here you can find out the linear distribution of membership. It will reach the maximum. Then once again, linear distribution of these particular the membership. Are you getting my point? Now, how to determine mathematically? One method is very simple. You know the equation of this particular straight line. If I know the coordinate of this, if I know the coordinate of this, very easily can find out, you can fit y equals to mx. So once you have got this particular the straight line equation, the moment you supply the value of x, you will be able to find out how much is the y. This is one way of doing. Another way of doing is this. So mu triangular membership is nothing but the max operator which is applied on this, that is minimum of x minus a comma b minus a comma c minus x divided by c minus b comma 0. Okay, so this is the way actually we can find out your mu triangle, where a, b and c are these points. A is this particular point, B is this particular point, and C is this particular point. And along this y-axis, we have got the mu. Okay, I'll be taking one numerical example after some time. Let us wait. I'll show you that numerical example. Okay. Then comes your trapezoidal membership function. So you can see the nature. So this is x. So it is going to follow a straight line distribution up to this. Then it will remain constant. Then it is going to decrease monotonically. So this is nothing but a trapezium. Now to represent the trapezium, I need to know point A, B, C and D. Once again, you can use the equation of straight line to find out the mu value. There is no problem. So from here to here, mu is kept equal to 1. Another equation you will be getting. But this is another way of representing. I'll be solving one numerical example. So mu trapezoidal is the maximum of the minimum of x minus a, b minus a, comma 1, d minus x divided by d minus c, comma 0. So this is the way you can find out mu trapezoidal. So for the trapezoidal membership function, this is the way you can find out the mu value. Then comes your Gaussian membership. You might have heard about Gaussian membership, and this is the mathematical expression for the Gaussian. So mu Gaussian is nothing but 1 divided by e raised to the power half into x minus m divided by sigma square. What is m? M is nothing but the mean of this Gaussian distribution. And what is sigma? Sigma is nothing but the standard deviation. So m stands for mean of the distribution, sigma represents standard deviation, and this is the mathematical expression for Gaussian distribution. The moment you supply a particular value of x and knowing the values of m and sigma, you can find out your the mu value corresponding to that particular the x. Then comes your bell-shaped membership function distribution. First, you try to understand the nature of this bell-shaped. So this is x. So as x increases, mu is going to increase following the nonlinear distribution. Then the mu will be kept same at the top at 1.0. Then your mu value is going to be reduced exponentially. So this is actually the bell-shaped membership function distribution, and mathematically this is written as mu bell-shaped is 1 divided by 1 plus x minus c divided by a mod value of that raised to the power 2b. Now I am going to discuss what is your this c. What are the c stands for actually your the center of this particular the distribution. A stands for the starting of the distribution, and what is B? B actually indicates the slope of this particular curve, and B is a positive quantity, and the higher the value of B, the steeper will be the distribution and vice versa. That means the smaller the value of B, the flatter will be the distribution. So this is the way actually you can represent mathematically the bell-shaped membership function distribution. I'll be solving one numerical example soon. This is another very popular membership function distribution that is called sigmoid membership function distribution. So mu sigmoid is nothing but 1 divided by 1 plus e raised to the power minus a into x minus b. Okay. Now, if I put x equals to b, if I put x equals to b, so I'll be getting e raised to the power 0 is equals to 1. So 1 divided by 2. So I'll be getting your 0.5. So this mu sigmoid that will become 0.5. Okay. Corresponding to this sigmoid membership function, if I put x equals to b, so I'll be getting your 0.5. So this is the way we define the sigmoid membership function distribution. Now, the summary of whatever I discussed till now, I introduced the concept of fuzzy set, the crisp set or the classical set. The properties of the classical set on the crisp set have been discussed in detail. I gave the concept of the fuzzy set and we discussed how to represent the fuzzy set mathematically. Okay, now I'm going to concentrate on a few terms used in fuzzy sets, and I'll also be concentrating on some standard operations used in fuzzy sets, and then I'll be concentrating on the properties of fuzzy sets. Now, let me concentrate on some numerical examples like how to determine the mu value. A few minutes ago, I told that I'll be solving some numerical example to show you how to determine the membership function value or mu. Now it is very simple. So this is a triangular membership function distribution. Okay, A is equals to 2, B is equals to C, that is the mid value, C is equals to 10. Now corresponding to this 8, I'll have to find out how much is the mu value. Okay, now it is very simple. So using that particular formula, so we can write down mu triangle is nothing but maximum of the minimum of x minus a divided by b minus a, comma, c minus x divided by c minus b, comma, 0. Now you substitute the values for a, b and c, you'll be getting this particular expression, and you supply x is equals to your how much? X is your 0.8, sorry, 8.0. So if you supply x equals to 8, okay, then you'll be getting mu triangle is nothing but maximum of the minimum between 3 by 2 comma 1 by 2 comma 0, and that will become 0.5. So corresponding to this x equals to 8, I can find out the mu will become equal to 0.5. So using this particular expression very easily, you can find out what should be the mu value corresponding to x. Now I'm going to concentrate on trapezoidal membership function. Now supposing that my trapezoidal membership function is defined something like this. Here a equals to 2, b equals to 4, c equals to 8, d equals to 10, the way I discussed. Now I am supplying a value of x, and corresponding to that x, I want to find out the mu value. How to do it? It is very simple. Use this particular formula, that is mu trapezoidal is the maximum of the minimum among x minus a divided by b minus a, comma 1, comma d minus x divided by d minus c, comma 0. Now, if we supply the values for a, b, c, and d, so I'll be getting this particular the expression. And if you get this particular expression, and if you supply the value for this particular x, so very easily you'll be getting for x equals to 3.5. So I'll be getting mu trapezoidal is nothing but maximum of the minimum among these, comma 0. And if you simplify, then you'll be getting 0.75. So corresponding to x equals to 3.5, corresponding to x equals to 3.5, you'll be getting mu is equals to 0.75. Similarly, you take some other example, might be here, and you'll see that you'll be getting 1.0 as mu. Now, this is the way actually we can find out the mu value. Similarly, for the Gaussian distribution, this is the Gaussian distribution, which I have already discussed. M stands for the mean, sigma is the standard deviation. The moment we supply a value of x, how to find out the mu, that we can calculate from here. So mu Gaussian is 1 divided by e raised to the power half multiplied by x minus m by sigma square. Take m equals to 10.0, sigma equals to 3.0. So mu Gaussian is nothing but 1 divided by e raised to the power half x minus 10 divided by 3.0 square. And if you put x equals to 9.0, so you'll be getting mu Gaussian is nothing but 0.9459. So you'll be getting that particular the mu Gaussian. Then bell-shaped membership function distribution. Now, this is the bell-shaped membership function distribution. The moment you supply a value of x, the x equals to say 8.0, I'll be able to find out what is its corresponding mu. So mu bell-shaped is 1 divided by 1 plus mod value of x minus c by a raised to the power 2b. Take c equals to 10, a equals to 2.0, b equals to 3.0, and you substitute all the values. The moment we put x equals to 8.0, I'll be able to find out that mu bell-shaped is 0.5. So this is the way actually you can find out the membership function value. Now I'm going to consider another membership function value that is called sigmoid. So this is the distribution for sigmoid membership function, and mu sigmoid is nothing but 1 divided by 1 plus e raised to the power minus a into x minus b. Take b equals to 6.0, a equals to 2. If you substitute, you'll be getting this particular expression. And now if I take x equals to 8, if you substitute, then mu sigmoid you'll be getting 0.98. So this is the way actually you can find out your membership function distribution. Okay. Now, till now, we have discussed the concept of crisp set, the concept of the fuzzy set. Okay. Now, with the help of this graphical, with the help of this figure, once again, I want to make a difference between the crisp set and the fuzzy set. And this example is a very practical example, and you will be astonished. And your idea regarding the difference between the crisp set and fuzzy set will be made crystal clear. Let me take this particular example. Now, this example, I have kept it in my textbook also. I think this is a very good example just to find out the difference between the crisp set and fuzzy set. Now, supposing that today you are going to invite for a party, and in the party you are going to invite your all friends at 7 p.m. and they should assemble at a particular place at 7 p.m. 7 in the evening. Okay, supposing that you have invited say 100 friends, okay, or say 50 friends, whatever may be. Now, if you invite your friends, you'll find that some of your friends will come 6:45 p.m. in place of 7. But some of your friends will be coming at say 15 minutes past 7, that is 7:15 p.m. Some of them will be coming at 6:50, some will come at 6:55, some will come at 7, some other will come at 5 minutes past 7 or 10 minutes past 7 or so on. So you'll be getting some distribution sort of thing. Okay. Now, although you have invited them to come at 7, some will be coming before 7, some may come after 7, some will be coming exactly at 7. But the number of people who will be coming exactly at 7, uh, uh, there might be only a few. Some of your friends, let me repeat. So you have invited your friends to join a party at 7 p.m. Okay. And supposing that you have invited a large number of friends, now although you have invited to come for the party at 7 p.m., some of your friends will be coming say 6:45 or 6:50 or 6:55. Some of your friends will be coming at 5 minutes past 7, 10 minutes past 7 or 15 minutes past 7. Okay. So you'll be getting some distribution. Okay. That particular distribution is nothing but the, the fuzzy set. Fuzzy set for 7 p.m. The friend which is coming exactly at 7, he is joining the party at 7 with membership function value 1.0. If your friend is coming at 5 minutes past 7, he is joining the party at 7 with membership function value 0.66. If one of your friend is coming at 7:10, as if he is joining the party at 7 with membership function value 0.33. Supposing that one of your friend is coming at 6:50, he is joining the party at 7 with the membership function value 0.33. Somebody is coming at 6:55, so he is also joining the meeting with membership function value 0.66 and so on. So this is nothing but your fuzzy set representation of your 7 p.m. Okay, so I think this is clear to all of you. Now, supposing that fortunately or unfortunately, whatever may be, out of these 50 friends which you have invited, so there could be one or two Japanese friends. Japanese are very much particular about the time. So if you are fortunate enough to get one Japanese friend, your Japanese friend may come exactly at 7, whereas your Indian friend will be coming at 7:10 or 6:55. Okay, that possibility is there, but there is no guarantee. Okay, so let me summarize. If you are fortunate enough to get a very good friend who maintains time, okay, so he'll be joining the party exactly at your 7 p.m. Whereas most of your friends will be coming either before 7 p.m. or after 7 p.m. They may not come exactly at 7. Okay. So I hope you got the idea. The friends which are joining the party exactly at 7 p.m. Okay. So they are joining the party exactly at 7 p.m. with 1.0, as if this particular vertical line is going to represent the creased set for 7 p.m. Now you can see the difference. This dark vertical line is the creased set representation for your 7 p.m., whereas your So this particular distribution for 7 p.m. is nothing but the fuzzy set. Now you see which one is more practical and which one is too much theoretical. Chris set is too much theoretical because practically it may not be possible to join the party exactly at 7 p.m. But the more practical solution is your 5 minutes or 10 minutes this side, that side. Okay. That is a more practical way of solving this particular problem. And this is a very theoretical way of solving. Now you can see the difference between the crisp set and fuzzy set. And all of you agree that for solving the real world problem, most of the time we follow knowingly or unknowingly the concept of fuzzy sets. Okay, because it might be difficult always to follow the crisp set, which is exactly at 7 p.m. But we define the 7 p.m. within a range. Most of the people actually do that. Okay, and there is a fuzzy set corresponding to this particular your 7 p.m. So I hope you have understood that the more practical way of looking into the problem is going for the fuzzy set. And if you want to solve the problem too much theoretically, so you can take the help of your crisp set. So that is why fuzzy set is a more general concept and crisp set is a small thing. Most of the time we may not be able to follow. And for solving the real world problem, most of the time we follow the concept of your the fuzzy sets. So I hope you got the idea or the difference between your the crisp set and your the fuzzy set. Now, today actually I'm planning to stop here because I'll have to go to Center for Robotics now. Uh, so I'm going to stop here today. But if you have any doubt, uh, I'll spend 2-3 minutes because I'll have to go to the Center for Robotics for some official work. Now, before I stop, may I know whether our TAs are there? Uh, Puspendra, are you online? Amit, are you online?
Yes, sir.
Amit, are you online?
Yes, sir. I am online, sir.
And Puspendra is not online, I think. Amit,
Yes, sir.
uh, uh, can you just do one thing? Can you call Puspendra? You tell Puspendra that uh, today in the evening I may send a mail to him to discuss something, some technical thing, okay, today in the evening, okay. So he should check his email. So we may discuss through this Microsoft Teams. I'll fixed one meeting with him, okay. That will be meeting with him and those who worked on that particular Shastri Fellowship problem, okay. So I may discuss. You just give a message that sir wants to talk to you. Might be sir will be sending a mail so that sir can discuss with you today in the evening. Okay, there will be some technical discussion. Okay, I think Puspendra is not online. It seems. Okay, so Amit just send one message.
Okay, sir.
Because now I'll have to go to Center for Robotics. There are some official work there. Huh?
Okay, sir.
Uh, so with this, let me stop here today. If there is any doubt, what you can do is tomorrow we are going to start at 12. So at the beginning of tomorrow's class, I'll first try to clear your doubts and then I'll proceed further. So let me stop here today. Bye.